Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Zeus Anonymous, and I'm with Poder. In 1994, I served as Vice President of the Charter Review Commission. It was our Charter Review Commission that put the amendment up for a vote to the citizens to have a 2/3 majority of the commissioners be not directly or indirectly involved with land development. So what we wanted to make sure is that there were a supermajority of lay people on the planning commissioners. And our intent at that time was to make sure that there was a fair process for the community. Because if you weren't here in the 1990s, people of color, and especially people in East Austin, we didn't have a seat at the table, not until we passed the East Austin overlay. When development came into our communities. So pretty much development and any types of form was allowed in East Austin, and we didn't have a voice in that particular process. So by putting this on the Charter Review Committee, we made sure that 2/3 of the planning commissioners would be lay people and could relate, especially to neighborhoods and, for us, communities of color. So our intent was not to have people that were either engineers, real estate brokers, or architects on the Planning Commission, but actually lay people, 2/3, because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't special interest that was dominating the Planning Commission, as it had been doing for a very long time. Like I said, people of color, pretty much, we didn't have a voice in that process. And I want to add that this charter amendment passed by over 2/3 of the voters here in Austin. It wasn't the city council at large system that passed it. It was the actual voters that passed this charter amendment. And there's a reason that charter amendment passed, because of what had been happening up to that point and to the past, and that too many developers were deciding on the commission what was the best for neighborhoods throughout Austin, but especially for East Austin, because as the vice chair on that Charter Review Commission, that was my interest of taking part. And on that Charter Review Commission, if you're not aware, we were also working on single-member district. Of course, it didn't pass at that time, but those were two important parallels that went on, making sure we had lay people, majority on the Planning Commission, and making sure we had single-member districts as city council representatives. So I'm going to ask you, please don't change the charter's intent to have non-development connected as a supermajority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. McGee, Mr. Lewis will speak.
This spread.
Right, and then after Mr. Lewis, Mike Hebert will be the speaker on deck.
I've worked on ethics and conflicts of interest issues and laws, studied it for over 20 years. This is not one of the more difficult ones. Really what you have to do is back off, take it away from the issues, the politics, the personnel, and think about the fact what the law requires you to do. You were sworn in, each of you, to uphold the law, even when it's difficult. It's always easy to uphold the law when it's easy. Even if it's inconvenient, it impacts negatively your friends, or has a result you don't like. That's what the rule of law means in a democracy. It basically means the ends don't justify the means. As Susanna said, the Planning Commission Charter Amendment's purpose is clear: to require a supermajority of board members to be lay members, not connected directly or indirectly to land development. The problem with options A and C and the others is they read out lay members, just remove it essentially by the wording, and they read out indirectly connected. The argument that an architect or an engineer is a lay person not connected indirectly to real estate and land development is a weak argument. If you ask a reasonable person, do you think an architect is a professional connected indirectly to real estate and land development? The answer is yes. Now, I know you can have lots of hypotheticals, but what we're here today is about commissioners that are architects, engineers, and home builders. So we could play law school, it's been a long time for me, and talk about all these difficult hypotheticals. But the real issue is whether or not you are going to remove what we've known for 3 years is an illegally constituted commission that does not reflect the wishes of the voters. We had the Planning Commission last 2 days ago. Its votes were 7-6. They would have been 5-5 if the commission had been legally constituted. So process matters. Give meaning to the People's Charter Amendment to prevent conflicts of interest. I would say the real thing you need to do is remove the commissioners. That is not a difficult legal issue, however much gymnastics have been done on it. The second thing, if you want to go further, is adopt Councilmember Alter's option B, which is a fair reading of what the voters wanted. And last, do not vote to eviscerate what is clearly a preventative ethics and conflicts of interest rules. It was saying we would rather have impartial lay people, 2/3, than so-called experts with special interests. You may disagree with that policy choice, but it was made by the voters.
Thank you. After Michael Hebert speaks, then Fred McGee will be on deck. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Hebert.
Good morning. Excuse me. My name is Mike Hebert. I'm with Community Not Commodity. I guess you've heard about us. I'm a lawyer. I've been at it for 48 years. And I've got a pretty good nose for knowing when things just aren't right. And what you have before you is a very simple proposition. You need not be a lawyer to read the charter. A 7th grader could read the charter and know what your responsibility here is today. Too often over the last few years, I've seen the city, and I mean the whole city, make choices to ignore the law to achieve expedient goals. And I submit to you today that none of the options that you have before you are the correct options. The real option is none of the above. Do what's right, honor your commitment to uphold the law, remove 3 commissioners who are not qualified to be on this commission. If any of you had the time to watch any part of the video this week of the Planning Commission considering a whole new set of amendments to the code, almost 200 amendments were submitted a week ago, written by the real estate industry behind closed doors, I think in complicity with our staff. They were put on a spreadsheet by the chair of the Planning Commission, and he is running a speed train right now. 3 minutes allowed for a commissioner to vote. He's put a deadline on commissioners to submit comments by noon on Friday on the map. And if your comments aren't submitted, they will not be considered. So we have a real estate dominated process. This process would not be going on but for real estate industry dominating our illegally constituted Planning Commission. This is taking place after the close of the public hearings. It's also taking place after the staff submitted over 404 amendments and a brand new map 1 week before the first public hearing before the Planning Commission. This process must be changed. This process is not democratic. This process would not be going on but for the fact that our Planning Commission is illegally dominated by the real estate industry. So I urge you, honor your oath, do the right thing, and let's get this process back on the right track. Thank you.
Mr. McGee? And with your donated time, you have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, and City Manager Crunk. My name is Fred McGee, and I am not a lawyer. Nor am I someone who gets paid money to represent people who seek to influence you, who seek to influence your decision-making. I'm here to lend my voice and my presence to the previous speakers regarding the composition of the Planning Commission. Heads I win, tails you lose. That's how the Planning Commission is currently constituted. Heads I win, tails you lose. How nice is that? You've known, because it was brought to your attention 3 years ago, that that planning commission was illegally constituted. And what have you done about that? Apparently nothing. And you should show some shame. You should show some remorse. I mean, how bought and paid for are you, some of you? It's unfortunate, and it's not right. We now are in the midst of an extended debate about CodeNext, which is going to dramatically alter the way land, real estate, and housing are developed in our city. But we have a planning commission which will render a vote on this that is a tails I win, heads you lose. Notice I just flipped that, but you get the point. Planning commission, you should do what the previous speakers have said, and you should read the plain meaning of the citizen-approved city charter. It's not hard. The gymnastics that have been undertaken by especially legal professionals regarding this situation do not reflect well on the city, and they do not reflect well upon you. You are undermining, through your action or inaction, the confidence of the citizens of this city in your leadership and judgment by these actions. I hope you bear that in mind by the shameless way in which you are shilling for the real estate special interests that walk around this chamber like they own the place, like ghouls. Please do the right thing here. It's not hard. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.